Hey everybody, welcome to the second episode of 2025 of Heim Time. This podcast is designed to bring you knowledge around real estate world, what's going on in our local market globally, and all aspects of real estate, and some fun stuff too.
Yes.
So I'm your host, Shannon Heim. I'm here with
Jenn Ross.
And we are going to dive in today around the biggest home buying mistakes and how to avoid them. We've kind of reached out to, our viewer audience, asked some questions around what have been your biggest mistakes. We're going to talk through some personal stories today as well, and go through that. So without further ado, let's kick this off. Jen, you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. So the first one that came in was, again, the biggest home buying mistakes and how to avoid them. Let me put on my glasses here. Is not getting pre-approved. Shopping for a home without knowing your budget can lead to disappointments and financial strain.
Absolutely.
Jump into that one, Jen?
Sure. So I think back up a little bit, pre-qualification versus pre-approval. It's all part of the lender world. Hopefully when you are ready to buy a house, you're starting to have that conversation with a lender. Pre-qualification means that they've taken a look at the information you provided them, you haven't turned any documents or necessary things in yet. Mm-hmm. And based on the information that they do know, what you have told them, you can be pre-qualified. We can offer on a house with that. It's wise, though, I think, to go a step further and get pre-approved, meaning give the documents to the lender that they need, tax returns, check stubs, etc., so that, you have that in hand that you are pre-approved. Just a little, we're next to a dentist office, apparently. A little drilling happening back there.
If you hear noise in the background, they're actually working on the outside of our building right now.
So yes. And so the pre-approval, I think, is the best to go on in, because then they've kind of already really gone through your whole situation, made sure you're truly good to go.
So if I'm understanding you right, pre-qualified is, hey, you're my lender. I call you up and say, I make $100,000 a year. I have no debt. I have no child support. I'm not back on anything.
I've been working at my job for 17 years.
Cool. And then you give me the blessing and say,
yes,
you're good to go, right?
You're good to go.
Where a pre-approval is walking through the documents. You're sending in whatever preliminary documents they need. So tax returns, pay stubs, all that. And then putting that in underwriting and making sure that they're verifying some of that stuff. So pre-approval you can get in about 5 minutes, right?
Right. It's pre-qualification.
Pre-qualification you get about 5 minutes. Pre-approval is going to take you a day or two to get through those documents.
Yes. I think it is a good step, though. And just to go back to your original question, which can be pre-qualification or a pre-approval, not having that done on the front side is not the best plan, because you may walk into a house and fall in love with it. Especially if it's got some unique features. Right now in our Clarksville market, where there's a lot of inventory to choose from, and so you have some time. However, as we get closer to PCS season, summer, that may change, and you don't want to miss out on a house because you've skipped a step.
Yep. So it's important to have that pre-approval completed on the front end, so you're not wasting time.
Sure.
Hey, that's what I was gonna say. There's a lot of clients that how I present it to clients is I say, hey, you may not have your credit pulled or a soft pull or hard pull, or we can go to that later if we wanted to. But like, if you haven't looked at your credit and see what it is, there may be errors or omissions on there, right? Yeah. A lot of us have similar names, right? You have things where different things get, Jennifer is one of the most common names between,
sure is.
79 and 80.
Thank you, Mom and Dad.
A decade or whatever. So it's a very common name, and something can be put on your credit that it might have been like a $10 Netflix subscription that you forgot about that got charged your stuff. Well, that's going to drop your credit score and knock you out, where it's a simple fix. So I always like to tell clients, hey, we make sure that there's no errors or omissions on your credit. And another personal story I have, actually a client right now, was a gentleman paid for his whole life. He's a co-borrower on a property, and he's paid for everything in cash for the last 30 years.
So no credit.
Cars, all that kind of, so no credit. So we call it, I used to call it ghost in the system, right?
Sure.
So it's not that he has bad credit, not that he has good credit. Now we
Yes.
just have to
No
establish
credit.
credit
Yeah.
to get that number back, because that's the FICO score is so important to people. So
Right.
it just helps with those roadblocks that may be there and all that stuff. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I would add too, also, we work in real estate every day and certainly chat with lenders. These interest rates change. And I've had clients who, okay, we just want to spend like 300,000 and they have an amount per month that they think that will be.
yeah,
And it's probably not going to be that.
yeah.
So just really getting that connection to confirm that you are truly able to buy a house and that, your payment is comfortable.
Yep. Yep. So going through all those numbers on the back end, because that does make a difference, right? So let's jump into number 2 here, which is under financial mistakes, right? Is making large purchases before closing. So you're all excited.
Yes.
You get the house. You're running through. You're like, oh my God, I got to get it. And then the next thing that seems to jump in everybody's mind is
Furniture.
I gotta get some- I
How
gotta
are we
get
going to furnish this thing?
I'm in an apartment right now, or I'm
Right?
upsizing, or whatever.
Or
it
we've
is.
had our couch for like 10 years
Years.
and we want a new one.
Yep. So that's the biggest line of credit that we see, where people run in, and we try to walk through with our clients to say, hey, don't make any large purchases, don't buy any cars, don't trade anything, keep things as going. If you have credit cards, make your payments on them. You can run normal
Yes.
day to day, but nothing crazy, right? So that large purchase before closing is going to give you, like you said, the furniture is the big one, right? And
Yeah.
You got
Yeah.
a story on that one? Any personal
Knock
stories
on
on
wood,
that one?
I've not had anyone who's not been able to close because they chose to go and buy an amazing sectional or something like that, thankfully.
Probably because of that conversation you're having with them on the front end.
Sure. And also the lender,
And also
too.
our
There should be
lenders.
conversations about that. I think something, the 0 interest, 12 months payment, same as cash or whatever, a lot of these places do. In your mind, you think, oh, well, I don't have to start paying on it until whatever. And so you don't realize like how that can still throw off your numbers. So when in doubt, reach out, ask me, your agent, or ask your lender, just to confirm. It may be that you are able to still go ahead and do that depending on what your debt looks like and all those pieces. But usually just wait till you get the keys and it's fully funded.
Yep.
And then go.
And then go. Yeah, I have a client that not buying a large purchase, but life happens too, right? So
Yeah.
the life happening part was they got in a car accident. We were building a house, so it's a longer process, right? So they're building a house. He gets in a car accident. Thank goodness he was okay, but car's totaled. So now, like, what do you do? Because if you got to go buy a new car, that's a new line of credit. That's all
Right.
that. So he did a very good job. He was a friend of mine, or he is a friend of mine, and he called me and he's like, this just happened. I think he called the insurance company, the police, and then me, right? It was like boom, boom, boom. What do I do? And I'm like, okay, let's get the lender involved. We worked through that. Ironically, believe it or not, 2 months later, still building the process, totals another car.
Oh my.
So he's gone through this twice. We'll do it. The house still closed. We were still able to do it because the lender was able to be involved in the front end versus
Sure.
finding that flag or that new line of credit 3 days before closing. They're
Yeah.
like, I don't know what this is. We're either pushing or canceling.
Yes.
So,
And I kind of want to just add, it's a little bit different and also matters. Paying off things too. So it can go the other way. Lenders should have this conversation with you as well. And of course, this isn't fully our world. However, like I have clients who are like, oh, I've paid off and then their credit drops because they've paid it off, which is an amazing thing, paying things off. We all think that we're supposed to be doing that. That's ultimately what we're trying to do. But that can affect things too.
Yep.
So,
yeah, so that was 2 of the largest financial mistakes that we see. And then next we'll jump into property selection mistakes too. So,
ooh, fun.
all right, so the second thing, jumping past financial mistakes, we're going to jump into property selection mistakes. So we'll hit a couple of the high questions that our viewers. So thank you again, viewers, for sending those in to us. One that came up was overlooking resale value. So kind of ironic, and our market's a little bit different, right? We're a heavy, for those that don't know, we're a heavy military market where we
Yeah.
have, PCS people come in and our military move about every 3 to 5 years for majority of them. Some will stay their whole career, but you have a larger turnover, a faster turnover in our
Sure.
market. So, Jen, you want to talk a little bit about the overlooking the resale value?
Right. So I think that's all, a conversation that starts at the beginning with regards to what are your goals with purchasing a home? Why, are you here for a season, or is this potentially going to be, a forever house,
Hmm.
which those plans change, of course, but what's the goal? And if you're coming in PCSing that and you kind of have an idea of 3 years, then we can talk through what that looks like. It may be more beneficial for you to rent if there are concerns about being able to sell it. And also, I talk all the time with my clients about potentially renting it out, when they move,
Yeah, build that
holding onto it, right?
long term wealth.
Yes. So it is definitely something to consider because, especially the families, like our military families, don't always know when they might have to go. So, yeah,
And
taking,
you had this like direct question
I did,
like a
yeah.
week ago or 2 weeks
Yep,
ago.
yeah. And so we talked through that. I ran some numbers, kind of loose numbers based on just what is normal equity gained
Yeah, appreciation.
year after year. And what that would kind of look like if they were only here for 3 years. And so, and no one has the crystal ball. We know this. So
Hmm.
it looked still like, it was beneficial to purchase, even if they moved in 3 years. So yeah, I think it all starts with what your goals are. And if a lot of clients know that it's not there forever, right? So they make different decisions because of that. Meanings, it may not be the best idea to buy a house built 50 years ago and versus something that's newer, just from a, upkeep and maintenance and those types of things. Even though you like the charm and character of older homes, it might be for resale purposes easier to sell something
Yep.
that's already kind of more updated. So,
Yeah, looking at long term and short term goals
right.
around what it is, and I know we both like to do that with clients, walk through that with them, and
Mhm.
it's your money, it's your decision. We're
Sure.
just here to guide you either way, and that's if you're not local or anything like that, that's what you want to find in a real estate agent is someone that actually has your best interest at heart to go, hey, what do you want to do, and renting may be the better option
Yep.
for that.
Yeah.
It's looking at that.
We're never going to not say that. I mean, it's not our decision. That's
Correct.
always something that, yeah, I don't want anyone to ever kind of get themselves into a mess. The good thing right now about our current state of the market, no one's overpaying or
Right.
having to pay 10,000, 20,000 over
Yeah.
what it really can appraise for. So that's positive.
Yeah. Yeah. In our current market right now, actually, numbers we looked at this morning, we're at six, almost 7 months supply, which sounds like a lot, which means that if there wasn't another house one on the market today, it would take 7 months to run through the supply of Montgomery County.
That would be such an interesting thing to have happen.
It would be very interesting to happen.
Like, it'd be like
I do not want it to happen.
getting picked in kickball. Like,
Yeah.
who's picked last?
Yeah. So it's looking at those things, but that's a balanced market, right? That's a 1-to-1 kind of ratio. So just looking at what happened 3 years ago with our COVID world, right?
Right.
It's an anomaly. It's not ever going to happen again. It's what's the normal stuff
That's
there.
not going to happen again. However, multiple offers, things moving quickly, that could absolutely
Sure.
happen again.
Absolutely.
So,
Yep. Your market's more balanced and stuff. So, second top question we had was ignoring zoning laws and HOA rules. And early on in my career, I actually made this mistake around, I didn't look far enough into it. It was a raw piece of land that somebody was buying in the middle of the county, and he wanted to build a tiny house on it. And I was like, yeah, let's go. That's the county. We're good. Right. And this is a lesson that I learned, and standing up here or sitting here, I can say that. And it's, he started building a tiny house. He got about 3/4 away building it, and the county came out, slapped a cease and desist on his door and said, stop building it. It has to be this. So we walked through stuff. Luckily, we sold the piece of land. He broke even out of it. He was fine with it. Everything was kosher there. But it really brought up a good point, right? And Christoph Camera here brought up, with the price of eggs, I think my wife just bought a dozen and a half eggs for $8.99 for 18 eggs, which is just crazy.
Did I miss? I know that the eggs are crazy. What happened to make them crazy? The bird flu.
Bird flu,
Okay,
and then,
apparently
people's gouging.
just not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, continue.
So a lot of people are saying, "Oh, I want to put chickens here. I want to do that." Where you have HOA restrictions, and then you may have city or municipality
Right.
covenants, and then your county covenants too.
Yes. Really digging into what the clients are hoping to do.
Yeah.
Just because there's not an active HOA or homeowners association in place does not mean that the developer did not put down restrictions and guidelines. So some places cannot have chicken.
Yeah, we were talking before we got a camera, and one of the we see this in just north of us is Kentucky. We see this in Hopkinsville area. I remember a neighborhood that 1967, I think, was when the restrictions were put in.
Yeah.
And they're still in effect today.
Right.
But there's no HOA. You wouldn't know it by doing it, all that stuff. But there's still restrictions that are there, which I found was interesting. And I think one of them was chickens.
Yeah.
Well, so.
It's funny if you talk. It's been a few years now, but different clients want different things. And calling the county and asking, it's like for 1 acre, you can have like 1 cow. I'm not exactly sure, so don't quote me on this, but the guidelines are funny. So like you can have like 5 chickens, or you have to have 5 acres before you can have a certain number of whatever. Like your poor cow would be by itself unless you have a certain number of acres.
Be a lonely cow.
I just think that's funny. And then the hoof thing is I'm not telling this correctly, but hoofed animals, there's restrictions. It's just a whole thing.
Very interesting.
Yeah, which you
need a different hobby. That's what I think. But moving on.
No. This is client needed research. And it mostly is going to happen when someone wants to buy land, right? And you would think that when you buy land and you have a few acres, you should be able to do
whatever you want.
Whatever you want to do.
Not the case.
And, there are some rules. So chickens, I do not like any kind of bird. So I just love it so much when my clients are like, I want to find a place I can have chickens. I'm like, okay.
That's funny.
Totally do it.
I really like the process questions because that folds into kind of the meat and potatoes of what we do, right? That's kind of our world around, process of finding the house, helping clients find the house, write the offer, get under contract, go through all that stuff. So
yes.
I'm kind of teetering between. We have 4 questions, right? That are 4 real questions that came in our topics, but not reviewing the contracts thoroughly. So missing details can lead to surprises at closing.
Yes.
So,
you have a story, I believe.
I do have a story on this.
Not that I've ever. I don't know if I have a story surrounding that. So you can tell yours.
So every state's different, right? The one that pops up there is I've again early on made a call. I have a few stories on not reading the contract and just going through it faster. When we're in a faster market, you're getting so many. You're not doing it there. You're not thoroughly as you should do that, right? And the big one that we see in Tennessee is in our market is seller paid buyer closing costs and all that stuff, but there's no real definition there's no such thing as closing costs. It's seller expenses, buyer expenses, title expenses.
But that term was used for a long time.
But that term was used and still is used by
many
more tenured agents and old school just writing. So looking at that, but it's making sure that you're really understand what's involved and your agent really understands what is involved in these different costs.
Right. Yep.
Lender costs, cost to cost of the buyer, mortgagee policies,
Yep.
Owner's policies, that stuff. And, the other thing is, hey, what stays with it? Because you might have a
Right.
washer and dryer, personal property that sneaks in.
Yep.
I'll sit here now and say, there's a beautiful set of a washer and dryer sitting in a house that I paid for that I will never see and never use because I missed it on the contract.
Right.
The right thing for me to do was to pay for it
Make
for
it
that
right.
buyer, because my seller was representing the seller side, and do the right thing and pay for it, put it in there. So
Yeah, that is the big one, I think. And also, I've heard horror stories of, we ask for a fridge and then they leave a fridge that's like for a dorm room or something.
Yep.
And technically there's a fridge there.
Yeah, they got $5,000 fridge in there. When the showing goes on, when they walk in to close on the house 3 days before, or do the final walk, they got to.
So now we really specify.
We specify
At time of
showing, or however that
whatever
is,
the brand is, all the things.
So,
yeah.
And really, really making sure that you understand, so that when you're reading, because as a buyer, you're supposed to be reading these, the agent's supposed to review them with you and go over them and understand what's there, and off the advice of your agent. So the next one is rushing the process. So making hasty decisions that can lead to buyer remorse, right?
Yep. I have a story. I actually just had showings today. I met the client for the first time yesterday. I think we've looked at maybe 6 houses now total over the 2 days. And she really liked one of them. And she was like, I want to do it. I want to do it. I don't want to make an impulsive decision though. And I was like, I won't let you. I said, of course, it's ultimately your decision. However, I want to make sure that because she'd wanted her friend to look and, just different pieces.
Yeah.
So, because when you do get in there, you see a pretty thing and you imagine everything that you want to do in the house. And,
selling is an emotional process.
It is an emotional process. And so it's our role. It's our job. I love the emotions of it. I do. It's part of why I became an agent. And to be able to remind them hey, you said you really wanted a lot of natural light. This seems is this working for you? And then, because just to make sure, I don't want anyone ever saying oh, we so regret buying this house. Cause that just crushes my heart.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we're seeing that a lot with clients that bought during that uptick, right? Where they're paying during that COVID, 2021 to 22, right? People bought houses 3 or 4 years ago. They bought the house that they could get, not that they necessarily loved. So we're seeing that remorse come in to go. Okay, so we're seeing a lot of a lot of owners, right, that are potentially selling the house that are, I don't love this house, but I love the interest rate.
Right.
I don't want to go out of this house. I have all this equity, but I don't want to, right? So they're sitting on the fence, but it was
rough. You had to, my clients would just call me and they hadn't even seen the house. They're just write it up because they moved so quickly. So you're buying off of pictures, which is not a good idea.
Yeah, skipping that inspection.
I haven't even looked in it. Even if y'all aren't here, I can still go and truly, see what's going on. But they're just write it up. And so, thankfully right now it's not crazy. The house likely will still be there if you sleep on it and you call your mom and dad or you call your best friend or all those pieces. So.
Yep. So. Well, thank you for spending time with me walking through this. Thank you to our viewers for sending in these questions on this. This is the first part of a long series that we're going to do. So we look forward to bringing you our next session in a couple weeks. So next podcast.
Take care.
See you next time. All right, everybody, now for the fun part, the disclaimer. We are licensed real estate agents in the state of Kentucky and Tennessee only.
This podcast is for informational purposes and should not be considered legal, financial, or professional advice.
We are not lenders, title companies, attorneys, or financial advisors. Please consult professionals in those fields for guidance.
Real estate laws and practices vary by location. Always check with experts in your state.
Any opinions are ours and ours alone and do not represent legal or financial recommendations.
Listeners are encouraged to do their own research and seek professional advice before making real estate decisions.
We look forward to seeing you on our next podcast.